Hello, everybody. Admiral Murphy here, and I'm bringing you my number 2 Star Trek series. What is it? Well, it's Star Trek The Next Generation. I like all the designs for everything. I've collected the phaser, I've got the tricorder, and I've got a bunch of models from the show. I think a lot of the designs they did for the show, of course, are a lot better than the original series. I think it was a great evolution of Star Trek. It was a good jump in just how they redesigned all the technology and made everything new, but it still kept the spirit, I think, of the original series alive. A good character changeover from the original series to the Next Generation. It didn't feel like you were copy pasting characters from the first show to the second. It felt like you were being offered new, interesting characters. Of course, you kind of had like Data, who was filling in for Spock in some ways, but he's very different at the same time. I have my model of the Galaxy class Enterprise here. This is an ugly ship. I will just say I hate the design of the Galaxy class, but at the same time I kind of love it because, I mean, this is the Enterprise. This is the Enterprise. I think while I love the original series, because I like Next Gen a little more, this is kind of the ship that represents that show. So, and also just kind of represents, I think, that era of Starfleet. Between all the other shows, you see the Galaxy class everywhere. When you see a lot of the races in Star Trek, they kind of have the same ship. You've got the Romulan Warbird, the Daredeks class. That's kind of like, when you see that, you're like, immediately you should think Romulans. You've got the Klingon Bird of Prey. It's just those ships kind of represent that government, that race, that alien. And this is the ship I feel like is the Federation, especially because when you play any of the Star Trek games, this ship is commonly in them. So definitely, I think I like it a little more because of that, for nostalgic reasons. Also, I think it's just cool because if you think what's actually on the ship, like holodecks, and apparently there's an aquarium with dolphins, that's just cool to think about. Honestly, if I got a chance to go on the Enterprise in real life, like it was like a cruise ship going through space, who would pass that up? It honestly just feels like that, except they get into trouble every once in a while. Okay, every once a week, I guess. But yeah, so the design of everything, I think it still holds up pretty well. I don't like the uniforms as much, but they're good. Now, let's delve into some of the episodes here and the ones that I think really stand out to me and why I like the show. Again, a lot of people think season 1 and 2 especially don't hold up. I kind of agree. They're not like Voyager to me where I can't rewatch them. And I think there's a few good episodes in the early Next Gen episodes, but yeah, I kind of agree. Next Gen definitely gets better. Season 5 and 6, I feel, are really strong for the show, and season 4. So looking through here, it's really hard to talk about episodes of the Next Gen because there are so many episodes that stand out and are really good. And again, it's an anthology show, so each is kind of its own story, and so since they don't tie together in a way, well, they kind of do. I'll talk about that in a second. But each one of them is kind of their own issue, their own plot, and that's what I like about the show. There's some overarching things, but it's another show that you can just, if you're like, hey, I remember that episode of Star Trek, I want to pull that out and watch it. You can do that. I guess it's really easy for me to point out any of the Q episodes I really enjoyed. In fact, Q is probably, I don't know if he's my number 1 guest star, but he's up there. I like Q as a character. He's kind of got that mischievous side of him, the kind of goofy side, and I can relate to that in a way. Plus, it's just fun to imagine, hey, if you were Q, you'd probably do the same thing. Like, there's probably that in all of us that would be like, man, I wish I had some godlike powers like Q where I could snap a finger and whatever I want it to happen happens. And so I just like that in a character like that. There's some episodes that deal with some really heavy issues. The Drumhead, I think, especially seeing that immediately, that stands out to me in this list of episodes here, especially as something, again, it's kind of like a taste of Armageddon that I mentioned in yesterday's episode. That one kind of like is even more relevant now, I think. I think the Drumhead is just an episode that's relevant no matter what time you see it in. Hopefully one day it isn't, but again, it's an episode that deals with the whole guilty until proven innocent thing, and actively trying to find people to be guilty of the crime, just to make the world a safer place, to give a sense of security. And the Drumhead really hits that one on the head, I think, as a story to show that, and the importance of not letting fear take away your freedom. And I think that episode really, there's a lot of episodes of The Next Gen that I think did inspire a lot of my own life philosophy and political philosophy in a way. And that's one of them that I like, because it's definitely one that had an impact on the way I look at the world. Unification with Spock, I enjoyed that episode a lot, just because it's nice to see Spock come back to the show. Cause and Effect, I love the time travel episodes. Next Gen had several, and this one, I like it a lot because not just of the story, but I think just as a production, I just find it fascinating. Because like I work on videos here on YouTube, I've worked on a few skits in the past, and it's just it's definitely a feat to try to do something like that and have it work so well, where you're pretty much shooting the same scenes over and over, and you have to make it feel like the same day, but you got to make it feel new and refreshing enough that the audience isn't getting bored during the episode because they're like, I've already seen this. I think they do that perfectly in that episode. The Borg episodes are really strong. I really like the introduction of Hugh as a character. It made the Borg a little more complex. And it's been fun to debate people over whether they should have been destroyed in that episode. I know people who are like, Picard, he made the wrong decision in that episode. He should have killed all the Borg because look at what they did. I don't really have a hard stance on that one, but I think it's just it's fun that the episodes, like it's a work of fiction, but it has people, like, they're so tied to the universe and the stories that they can debate stuff like that. Again, I find it really hard to just pull out episodes and say, hey, this is good, because there's so many that are really good. One thing I will say is the introduction of some of the old races from the original series and new ones. You get a lot of aliens I think you get really attached to. I love some of the ship designs. The Klingons, though, I'll talk about it here. I'm mixed on the Klingons because I like their ship designs and I like the idea of the Klingons. But I think one of the problems I have with the Klingons, and I've known some people who are really big fans of Klingons, and I'd probably debate them on hours about this. I think I might have. But the Klingons are not honorable warriors. And I've had a lot of debates with people over it because the problem with the Klingon Empire is they have this whole sense of duty and honor, but when it gets down to their actual government, they don't. They've revealed in episodes that the Klingons cover up things for different people in power. Like there's this whole plot line where Worf, his father's been dishonored only because they've put a crime on him that was actually a crime of somebody else's father who was serving on their high council. And so they cover that up and they do stuff like that. That just makes you question. Honestly, if I met a Klingon in real life, one, I'd be afraid, first of all, because they're fucking tough. But otherwise, I definitely wouldn't have as much respect for them. Like if they were actually as honorable as they claim to be, I probably would. But there's this part of me when I see them in the show, I kind of shrug all the time when they talk about honor because I know there's so many of them that they kind of follow it to their own philosophy of honor and less to what I think as a society they think honor should be. It makes the race definitely dynamic, but it kind of underplays, like that's their gimmick, and that's kind of in a way ruined on that. The Romulans are definitely, I think, the ones out of TNG because there's like the Klingons are a big race in there. The Cardassians are cool, but the Romulans are like the big bad, other than the Borg, and I like the Romulans a lot. I've been listening to a podcast called Mission Log, and they went through the TNG episodes, and I definitely agree with them in some cases where you've got them kind of turning into the mustache twirling bad guy of the week, and I kind of agree, but I still like them. I think they're a more interesting race than the Klingons because they have that like mysterious side. Plus, I just like their design of their ships. The D'Deritic's cool to look at. Now, The Next Generation's ending is it's always fluctuated between my favorite ending of any of the Star Trek shows and my second favorite. At this point, I think it is my favorite ending because of the way I've thought of the ending of The Next Generation. The thing that I think is so nice about it is the perfect bookend to the show overall, because I like that they basically say that each of the episodes kind of relates to the issue in the first episode where humanity was getting put on a test. That each of the episodes, while they weren't tied together, was just another test for humanity, because the overall premise of TNG, while it is a cool sci-fi show, is each week they were tackling some issue. Sometimes there were moral issues or political issues or philosophical issues. And the show, I think, brilliantly does that. And so the last episode kind of ties that all up really nicely. And it gives you a satisfying conclusion to all the characters that by the time they sit around the poker table at the end, and they are kind of like, you've waited all this time for Picard to kind of break out of his shell and show up to one of these games, or at least like socialize more with his crew. It's nice to see that at the end of the show he finally does that, and I think it's a satisfying conclusion to those characters. I enjoy the TNG movies somewhat, but if that was the end that we saw those characters, I think that would have been great too. I would have been completely fine with that, because I like the last time seeing them just around the poker table and the ship flying off. I think that scene is brilliant. I think it's well shot, and it's a really great send-off to the show. Yeah, that's The Next Generation. I really enjoy it. The theme, it's something catchy. I haven't talked a lot about the intros for the shows except for Enterprise. I like the 4 instrumental intros the most for the Star Trek shows, definitely. And it's hard to rank them because each of them has, I think they fit so well with the show. It's hard to compare them to other ones and go, this is my favorite. But the Next Generation one is that one that everybody, like, you play that and people know it. Even if they weren't a huge Star Trek fan, most likely they know that theme from somewhere. And it's a show that's just so ingrained with our culture at this point. People know the reference, some of the references from both the original series and Next Gen. And so this is definitely my number 2 Star Trek series. It's kind of obvious what my number 1 is now. We'll talk about that one tomorrow. So I'm excited to bring you that one because that is my favorite Star Trek series. So I will see you guys tomorrow for that one. Be sure to leave a comment. Let me know what you think of The Next Generation. What's your favorite episode of it? Let me know in the comments below what your favorite episode of the show is. I'll see you next time, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.